Another day and another wild slew of DC updates, rumors, reports, and debunks by James Gunn. Patty Jenkins made a big public statement about the falling apart of the Rogue Squadron movie, the fact that it might still happen, and she clarified rumors and reports about Wonder Woman 3 falling apart. On top of that, Variety ran an article earlier today talking about how James Gunn and Peter Safran were looking at bringing in Robert Pattinson's Batman as the Batman for the DCU. And James Gunn debunked that, and I'm actually happy that he did, but I think there's something else going on with the way Gunn keeps debunking these certain stories. I tend to believe a lot of this is kind of dancing around the reality that DC is about to do a major reboot. So let's first break down the Patty Jenkins stuff, then we will get into the Robert Pattinson Batman stuff, and then we'll speculate about all of this works together and why I truly believe a big DC reboot is coming. So you will remember, of course, that Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3 is no longer happening, and there was a massive article that came out in the Hollywood trades last week about this going down. And the narrative out there from that article, but then other articles that came out afterwards, really made it seem like this was a Patty Jenkins thing, that Patty Jenkins received notes from the studio but didn't want to comply with them, was frustrated with the process, and therefore walked away. And the initial story made it seem like Gal Gadot was also done as Wonder Woman, but some of the follow-ups really made it seem like it was a Patty Jenkins situation, and maybe Gal Gadot would still survive and be Wonder Woman, Princess Diana, and whatever James Gunn and Peter Safran are going to do with DC next. Cue to late last night when Patty Jenkins herself took to Twitter to debunk and clarify what was actually going on. Her message reads, "Sigh, I'm not one to talk about private career matters, but I will not allow inaccuracies to continue. Here are the facts. I originally left Rogue Squadron after a long and productive development process when it became clear it couldn't happen soon enough, and I did not want to delay Wonder Woman 3 any further. When I did, Lucasfilm asked me to consider coming back to Rogue Squadron after Wonder Woman 3, which I was honored to do, so I agreed. They made a new deal with me. In fact, I am still on it, and that project has been in active development ever since. I don't know if it will happen or not. We never do until the development process is complete, but I look forward to its potential ahead." She then said, when there started being backlash about Wonder Woman 3 not happening, the attractive clickbait false story was that it was me that killed it or walked away that started to spread. This is simply not true. I never walked away. I was open to considering anything asked of me. It was my understanding there was nothing I could do to move anything forward at this time. DC is obviously buried in changes they are having to make, so I understand these decisions are difficult right now. Now, she goes on to talk about how great the experience was, praise Gal Gadot, and thank all of the fans, which I think is really fair and, very cool of her to do. And it is sort of a shame that it seems like the Wonder Woman journey of Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins is coming to a close. So what do I think is going on here? Is Patty Jenkins being 100% truthful? Were all of the reports and rumors about these other situations false? I mean, I don't know, guys. I can't really make heads or tails of this situation. Of course, myself just got recently clapped back by James Gunn, and he was saying that the Henry Cavill stuff was all false. A lot of the stuff that I was hearing about him having some animosity towards Henry Cavill. And I think it just kind of comes down to, like, are you going to take these people at their word? And, maybe there's truth in what Patty is saying, but I gotta be honest, it really does feel like a little bit of damage control. It feels like she's kind of throwing the ball back in Lucasfilm's court when it comes to the Rogue Squadron movie, saying she has a new deal and it's technically still in active development. It seems like that's there to change the narrative that she's difficult to work with. And after losing Rogue Squadron and losing Wonder Woman 3, yeah, it's kind of a bad look for a person's career, so I can understand her wanting to get out here and do some damage control. And I saw a lot of Star Wars fans claiming, oh man, we're going to get Rogue Squadron now that they're not doing Wonder Woman 3. And I would absolutely love that to be the case, but a lot of the reports that came out before Patty made this statement made it seem like that was very, very unlikely. So I guess we'll just see when it comes to that. Again, do you take Patty at her word? That's up for you to decide. Now, in the second paragraph, when she's talking about Wonder Woman 3, this is way more interesting, especially when you consider all the craziness that's going on with DC right now. The trades and reports made it seem like it was a Patty Jenkins issue and she was difficult to work with and wouldn't make the necessary changes to make Wonder Woman fit in the new DCU. This kind of made it seem like there was a potential soft reboot, but Jenkins didn't want to do that and play ball. But according to Patty herself, she was willing to do anything, and from what she understood, there was no way it was moving forward. Nothing she could do would change that fact. She mentions DC being buried in changes they have to make, which is a really interesting way to phrase that. But I personally believe here that what's going on is they are actively working on a big old DC reboot, and therefore having Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins continue with this character that had been around during the Snyder era was not going to work no matter what changes Patty was going to make. But now let's get into the whole Pattinson friggin' Matt Reeves The Batman movie being the new Batman for the DCU thing. Variety reported earlier today talking about massive changes going on at DC. The fact that they didn't think the films next year were going to get additional budget to make them able to tie in to whatever James Gunn is doing with the DCU. It's really important that you realize what the tone of this article was, because essentially Variety is saying that they truly feel like a big reboot is happening, which they've hinted at in their previous coverage as well. So they bring up the budgetary constraints, suggesting that it would be not feasible for Warner Brothers to make changes to the movies coming out next year to make them fit into James's DCU. They also talk about the speculation about Henry Cavill's Superman, Man of Steel 2, and I'm sure you're all really familiar with what's going on with that situation. But then they go to say that at least one part of the Zack Snyder universe will not be present in the future, as they are hearing from an incredibly well-placed source that Peter Safran and James Gunn are thinking about using Robert Pattinson's Batman as the Batman for the DCU. And the whole reason they bring this up in the article is not even so much to say that Pattinson will be the guy, but to show that nothing over there is being planned as far as continuing Snyder's stuff. And James Gunn himself debunks this later in the day, saying that he likes that reporter, but that this report is completely false, or rather entirely untrue is the words that he used. And while I'm personally relieved that Robert Pattinson isn't going to be the Batman for the DCU, I'm confused as to why Variety, who's very good with their sources and reporting, would report such a thing. And this is where we get into speculation, but I've been thinking about this a lot, obviously, ever since James Gunn and myself had the spat on Twitter, which I know I didn't handle very well. I shouldn't have doubled and tripled down on, but I also can't shake this feeling that part of the reason James Gunn is coming out and denying these rumors very publicly, and why the trades and other people seem to keep wanting to put these kind of rumors forward, is because of the big inevitable clash that is going to happen in the fan base when James Gunn decides to let everybody know that he's not moving forward with any of the current DCU actors. So this is definitely speculation territory, but I personally believe that James Gunn is trying to control the narrative here. And I think part of the reason he's trying to control the narrative is because he knows that the fractured DC fan base currently is going to react rather harshly if they realize that a full reboot is coming. I'm personally a fan of the full reboot, but a lot of people, including the very vocal and organized Snyder Cut fandom, will freak out if they realize all of that stuff is being removed and discarded for what James wants to do with the DCU. To me, even though it seems like Robert Pattinson will not be the Batman of the DCU, it's also possible that the Matt Reeves universe and the Batman universe might still somehow persist in DC moving forward. But it's also really starting to seem like none of the Snyderverse actors are going to be kept in the role that they had. And it seems like James Gunn is trying to debunk things while also trying to shut down the narrative that's speaking to that reality. That's why he got so triggered about the Henry Cavill thing. That's why he felt like he needed to personally debunk this article, which is talking about the Snyder stuff going away. It's all up for interpretation. We don't know for sure, and I obviously have my own bias when it comes to this story, but that's really what I think is going on. Hopefully soon we'll get clarity on all of this, but for my part, it really seems like a big old reboot is on the way, and I'm seeing all these little signs that are adding up to that. But I, of course, want to know what you think about this, so let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comment section below. Smash a like on this video if you liked it. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and our live streaming channel so you have a chance to win the dope nerdy stuff that we give away each month. And if you want to watch more, why not check out this video I recently did about this crazy thing coming to Star Wars that I think could actually save the brand.